As the CEO of a prairie-based company, are you and your leadership team unclear as to what specific Canadian and U.S. products are subject to tariffs? With the long list of U.S. tariff announcements, delays, and reprieves since January, and the multiple counter tariffs announced by Canada, it's easy to be confused about what Canadian and U.S. products are actually subject to tariffs and at what rates. As well, the US made all Canadian products that are compliant with the CUSMA, the Canada-United States-Mexico Agreement, exempt from their tariffs, with the exception of Canadian automobiles. And so, what products are not CUSMA compliant and therefore subject to US tariffs? Most of Canada's counter tariffs target two specific government lists of products. Each list is hundreds of pages long, so we've summarized those lists here for easy reference. Let's start with the U.S. tariffs on Canadian products. First, Canadian CUSMA compliant products. U.S. tariffs only apply to Canadian CUSMA compliant automobiles at a rate of 25% on their non-U.S. content. U.S. tariffs do not apply to any other Canadian products that are CUSMA compliant. How about Canadian non-CUSMA compliant products? 25% tariffs apply to all Canadian non-CUSMA compliant products other than energy products and potash. We'll talk about that later. This includes 25% tariffs on the non-CUSMA compliant steel products and derivatives and aluminum products and derivatives from the original 2018 steel and aluminum tariff list, as well as additional derivatives. It also includes 25% tariffs on Canadian non-CUSMA compliant automobiles as of April 3rd, 2025, and on non-CUSMA compliant automobile parts as of May 3rd, 2025. 10% tariffs apply to non-CUSMA compliant energy products and resources, which include crude oil, natural gas, lease condensates, natural gas liquids, refined petroleum products, uranium, coal, biofuels, geothermal heat, the kinetic movement of flowing water, and critical minerals. 10% tariffs also apply to potash that is non-CUSMA compliant. Note that on April 9th, with Trump decreasing tariffs on most countries to 10% and putting a 90-day pause on the originally announced higher tariffs, it was thought that Canada may be subject to 10% tariffs, possibly across the board, rather than the 25% and 10% tariffs previously announced and implemented almost exclusively on non-CUSMA compliant products. The U.S. administration then changed or clarified their messaging, indicating that the U.S.'s existing tariffs on Canada would not change with this announcement. Now, what Canadian products are non-CUSMA compliant and therefore subject to these U.S. tariffs? It's difficult, if not impossible, to come up with a definitive list. An internet search or an AI query will come up dry. Whether a specific product is CUSMA compliant depends on whether it meets the CUSMA rules of origin. As such, the same type of product made by different manufacturers may each have different CUSMA compliant statuses depending on where they source their parts and materials. For example, an automobile must have 75% of its parts from the US, Canada, or Mexico for it to be considered CUSMA compliant, among other requirements. While a Honda compact sedan may fit these requirements, a Toyota compact sedan may not. Therefore, we were not able to find a list of non-CUSMA compliant products or conversely a list of CUSMA compliant products. That said, we would expect most prairie-based companies selling to U.S. customers to have already become acutely aware of their products being subject to the U.S.'s new tariffs. How about Canadian counter tariffs on U.S. products? What specific U.S. products are subject to these tariffs? Canada, for its part, has imposed three sets of counter tariffs. On March 4th, 25% counter tariffs were imposed on $30 billion worth of U.S. goods imported annually. On March 13th, 25% counter tariffs were imposed on a list of steel products worth $12.6 billion and aluminum products worth $3 billion, as well as additional imported U.S. goods worth $14.2 billion for a total of $29.8 billion. On April 9th, 25% counter tariffs were imposed on non-CUSMA compliant US made vehicles and on the non-Canadian and non-Mexican content of CUSMA compliant US made vehicles. Again, there are no definitive lists of vehicles that are CUSMA compliant or non-CUSMA compliant. In terms of specific U.S. products targeted by the March 4th and 13th tariffs, the Government of Canada website has a web page listing each set of products. However, these two web pages are hundreds of pages long and include painstakingly detailed definitions and descriptions of all the different variations of each product. So we've summarized them here for easy reference. The following categories of U.S. products are subject to Canada's 25% counter tariffs imposed on March 4th. Food products, including fruits, vegetables, grains, oils, sweeteners, dairy, and meat. Textiles and apparel, including clothing, carpets, and linen. Personal care and cosmetics. Household goods, including furniture, appliances, and cleaning supplies. Industrial materials, including wood, plastics, and rubber. Machinery and tools. And a separate set of other, including tobacco, firearms, and art. The following categories of U.S. products are subject to Canada's 25% counter tariffs imposed on March 13th. Household goods, including candles, tableware, and household items. Metal products, including gold, iron, and steel ingots and aluminum wire. Tools, including hand tools and saw blades. Fixtures and fittings, including locks and pipe fittings. Electronics, including printers and copiers and computers. Furniture and decor, including lighting. Recreation and leisure, including toys and sports equipment. Cleaning supplies, including brooms and brushes. Personal care, including combs and slides, among others. For our 15-page summary of the specific products subject to Canada's March 4 and March 13 counter tariffs, see the link below this video or in our LinkedIn post. As we can see, Canada's counter tariffs on U.S. products are broad. As such, many companies who resell products from the U.S. or who buy parts or materials from the U.S. to manufacture their products will see their supply costs increase as long as these Canadian counter tariffs are in place and unless they find substitutes in Canada or elsewhere at similar prices. Even those companies who do not buy products, parts, or materials from the U.S. will likely see their costs increase in the form of upward pressure on wages due to employees' increasing cost of living. This will also likely put upward pressure on prices from companies' Canadian suppliers and vendors, who will also experience these wage pressures. Over time, these tariffs, if they remain in place for some time, will likely affect the costs of nearly every company in Canada, in every industry in Canada. If you're a Prairie CEO who wants to grow a thriving company through these turbulent times more quickly, more easily, and with less stress and headaches, please contact me via the Connect page. And for other ways to navigate these challenging times with confidence, get the free, complete Trade War Success Guide for small to mid-sized companies below. I hope you found this useful.